America once tore itself in half. Brother fought brother, father fought son, 620,000 people died, more Americans than in every other war combined. How did one country end up killing itself, and how did it survive? To understand this, we need to go back to a deal that was always going to explode. Back in the early 1800s, America didn't have 50 states. It started with just 13, and it kept growing. Every few years, a new chunk of land would ask to become a state, and every time that happened, the same terrifying question came up. Will this new state allow slavery or ban it? See, America had a government called Congress where every state got a vote. In 1820, there were exactly 11 states that allowed slavery and 11 that didn't. Perfect tie. If one new state picked a side, that side would have more votes and could start making the rules for everybody. That's when a territory called Missouri said it wanted to join, and Congress lost its mind. Politicians screamed at each other for 2 whole years. Thomas Jefferson, one of the guys who helped build America, was an old man by now. He said the Missouri fight scared him like a fire bell ringing in the night. Then a smooth-talking politician named Henry Clay walked in with a deal.
No more slave states! It stops here!
You can't tell us what to do? Boys, what if Missouri gets slavery, but we also let Maine join as a free state? Stays balanced. Then we draw a line across the map. Above the line, no slavery allowed. I guess that works.
I hate it, but fine.
They called it the Missouri Compromise, and Congress celebrated like heroes. A few weeks later, a school teacher in Virginia tries to explain the compromise to her class. She unrolls a big map and draws the new line with chalk. A kid in the back raises his hand and says,
"Ma'am, what happens when they run out of room above the line?"
She stares at him, then at the map, and then she quietly rolls it back up and changes the subject. That kid asked the one question nobody wanted to think about, but they hadn't fixed the problem. They just delayed it. And the two halves of America were turning into completely different worlds. The compromise was holding, no more fights in Congress, but underneath the surface, America was quietly splitting in two. And once you see the numbers, you're gonna understand why this was always going to explode. By the 1850s, the North and South barely looked like they belonged together. Look at the map. See all that green farmland across the South? Cotton fields stretching to the horizon. About 84% of Southerners worked on farms, and the whole economy ran on the backs of enslaved people. Now look north. Factories on every corner, railroad tracks crisscrossing entire states, cities swelling with millions of immigrants arriving from Europe. The North produced 32 times more firearms than the South. If this were a video game, one side was upgrading to rocket launchers, while the other was still using slingshots. I just got a machine that makes cloth ridiculously fast. Want one? No, machines break down too much. So how do you make your money down there? Cotton, mountains of it. With machines?
With, people.
You pay people to pick it?
Well, not exactly pay.
These two halves needed completely different things from their government. The North wanted taxes on foreign goods. That way people would buy stuff from their factories instead. The South wanted those taxes kept low so they could sell cotton overseas and buy cheap European goods. Every single issue pushed them further apart. Meanwhile in Congress, a southern cotton farmer and a northern factory owner are sitting next to each other trying to agree on anything. The farmer wants the government to leave him alone, the factory owner wants government money for railroads. They can't even agree on what time lunch should be. Two different worlds shoved under one roof. And the argument about to blow that roof wide open was heading straight for a little territory out west. Remember that line they drew across the map? The one that was supposed to keep the peace? Well, America kept grabbing new land out west, and every time it did, the same ugly fight would come back. Should slavery be allowed there? Whoever controlled the new territories would control the future of the whole country. So, in 1854, Congress came up with a new idea. Instead of drawing lines, let the people living in each territory vote for themselves. Sounds fair, right? Except, both sides immediately started cheating. The territory of Kansas was up first. Pro-slavery families rushed across the border from Missouri to stuff the vote. Anti-slavery families flooded in from north to do the same, and Kansas turned into a chess match where nobody followed the rules.
I'm here to make Kansas a free territory.
Funny, I'm here to make it a slave territory.
Where are you even from?
Missouri, just crossed the border this morning.
You can't just show up and vote. You don't even live here.
I do now. See that tent? That's my house.
That's a bed sheet on a stick.
It's called rustic charm. Kansas ended up with two separate governments, one pro-slavery, one anti-slavery, both claiming to be in charge. Then the voting stopped and the shooting started. They called it Bleeding Kansas, and it earned that name fast. Mobs burned down whole towns. Armed gangs raided farms in the middle of the night. One man named John Brown, a guy who believed slavery was evil and had to be destroyed by force, showed up with a wagon full of swords and led violent raids against pro-slavery settlers. Over 50 people died. Americans were already killing each other over slavery, and the actual Civil War hadn't even started yet. All it would take now was one election to light the fuse. If you're enjoying this, subscribe, because from here on out, nobody makes good decisions. November 1860. America was about to hold the most dangerous election in its history. The country was so divided that even the political parties had split apart. The Democratic Party, which used to be one big group, cracked right down the middle. Northern Democrats picked one candidate, Southern Democrats picked a different one. A third party showed up with yet another guy. And then there were the Republicans. This was a brand new party, only about 6 years old, built specifically to stop slavery from spreading. Their candidate was a tall, lanky lawyer from Illinois named Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln's message was simple: slavery should not spread into new territories. He didn't say he'd end it where it already existed, he just said it shouldn't grow. But to the South, that sounded like the beginning of the end. People today get this wrong. This war wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights, about who gets to decide how we live. Here's the wild part. Lincoln wasn't even on the ballot in 10 southern states. His name literally did not appear on the voting paper. You couldn't vote for him even if you wanted to. If that Lincoln fellow wins, I'm done with this country.
He said he won't touch slavery where it exists.
And you believe a politician?
Okay, but what are you gonna actually do about it? Leave?
Watch me.
You can't just leave a country?
Pretty sure we're about to find out. Down in South Carolina, a newspaper editor reads the election results by candlelight. He counts the numbers twice, then a third time. He puts the paper down, walks outside, and starts ringing the church bell at 2 in the morning. His neighbor storms out in a nightgown yelling, "What are you doing?" The editor holds up the newspaper and says, "Lincoln won! Start packing!" Lincoln won without a single Southern vote. For the first time ever, a president was elected without any support from an entire region of the country. Southern leaders looked at the results and realized they'd lost control of the government. Maybe permanently. The talking was over, and within weeks, states started walking out the door. South Carolina didn't even wait for Lincoln to take office. 6 weeks after the election, on December 20th, 1860, they voted to leave the United States. Their reason? They believed Lincoln would eventually destroy slavery, and slavery was the foundation of their entire way of life. No negotiation, no compromise, just goodbye. Then the dominoes started falling. Mississippi left, Florida left, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, all gone within weeks. 7 states vanished from the Union. And they didn't just leave, they built a whole new country. They called it the Confederate States of America. Basically their own version of the United States, with its own president, its own flag, and its own army. They picked a former senator from Mississippi named Jefferson Davis to run it. Mr. President, we left the Union. Now what? First, we need a flag. Can't be a country without a flag. Done. What else? An army. Working on it. There's a problem. What now? There are Union soldiers just sitting in our harbors, eating lunch like nothing happened. Oh, that's awkward.
Very. Should we ask them to leave?
Politely? And if they don't leave politely, we ask them less politely.
Meanwhile, on a small farm in Virginia, two brothers are sitting on a porch staring at a newspaper. The older one folds it carefully and says he's heading south to join the Confederacy. The younger one says he's staying loyal to the Union. Their mother walks out holding two packed lunches, looks at both of them, and doesn't know which son to hand them to. She leaves both lunches on the railing and goes back inside without a word. Across the South, scenes like this played out in thousands of homes. Cousins stopped talking, childhood friends picked opposite sides, entire churches split down the middle. But the Confederacy had one stubborn problem it couldn't ignore: a federal fort sitting in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. Its name was Fort Sumter, and the soldiers inside had no plans to leave. Lincoln showed up for his first day as president on March 4th, 1861, and immediately got the worst possible news. The commander at Fort Sumter, that Union fort sitting right in the middle of Confederate territory, sent an urgent message. We're running out of food. No supplies means the soldiers starve within weeks. Lincoln had three terrible options: send warships and start a war, abandon the fort and basically admit the Confederacy is a real country, or do nothing and let his own men die. So he came up with a sneaky move. He announced he'd send ships carrying only food. No soldiers, no cannons, just bread and pork. Good luck looking like the good guy for shooting out a bread delivery, right? Sir, Lincoln's sending ships to Fort Sumter.
Ships with what?
He says just food, sir.
If we let them resupply, that fort stays in our harbor forever.
If we shoot at a bread delivery, we kind of look terrible, sir.
He's trapped us. Tell them to surrender. If they refuse, open fire.
This is gonna be a whole big thing, isn't it?
Yep.
4:30 in the morning, April 12th, 1861. Sky pitch black over Charleston Harbor. A Confederate soldier lights the fuse on a massive cannon aimed right at Fort Sumter. The blast echoes across the water like thunder. Within minutes, dozens of cannons are firing from every direction. The bombardment lasted 34 straight hours. Walls cracked, fires broke out everywhere, the fort's flag got shot down twice, and soldiers kept sprinting out to put it back up. Thousands of cannonballs, and somehow, 0 people died in the fighting. But it didn't matter. Those cannon blasts were heard across the entire country. Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers the next morning. 4 more southern states, including Virginia, right on Washington's doorstep, joined the Confederacy, and everybody figured it would all be wrapped up in about 90 days. They were very, very wrong. 90 days. That's how long everyone figured this war would last. Newspapers in Washington printed headlines screaming, "On to Richmond!" That was the Confederate capital, just 100 miles south. Union generals promised a quick smackdown, home by dinner, easy. Some folks in Washington believed this so hard that they packed picnic blankets and rode their carriages out to watch the first big battle. Real food, fancy cheese, opera glasses. They set up blankets on a hillside near a creek called Bull Run in Virginia and treated it like a day out at the theater. Oh, look, Harold, the soldiers are shooting.
Marvelous. Pass the cheese, would you?
I do hope our boys win quickly. I have a dinner party tonight.
I'm sure it'll be over by lunch. More champagne?
Why are those soldiers running toward us?
Must be a victory parade.
Run! We lost! They're coming!
Oh, I've spilled my champagne.
Harold, get in the carriage! The picnic was over, and so was the fantasy. The Union Army didn't just lose at Bull Run, it fell apart completely. Soldiers threw down their weapons and sprinted back toward Washington in total panic, crashing into fancy carriages and picnic blankets on the way. Back in a small Connecticut town, a young man named Tommy Aldrich had signed up for his 90-day adventure just 2 weeks earlier. He told his mother he'd be home before the leaves changed color.
After Bull Run, the army told him 90 days was now 3 years. Tommy pulled out his mother's letter, read it one more time, then stuffed it back in his pocket and started marching. By the end of that single afternoon, nearly 5,000 soldiers on both sides were dead, wounded, or missing. One afternoon. And this was supposed to be the quick, easy war. Both sides went quiet. Nobody had a plan for what came next. And the reason for fighting was about to change in a way nobody saw coming. For months, Lincoln had been hiding something in his desk drawer. A secret document that would transform the entire war. He called it the Emancipation Proclamation, an official order declaring every enslaved person in Confederate states forever free. But his advisors begged him to wait. The Union was losing badly. Battle after battle, Confederate armies kept winning. If Lincoln released this now, it would look desperate. He needed a victory first. There was another reason too. Britain and France were talking about helping the Confederacy. The South grew most of the world's cotton, and European factories needed it. If those countries sent money or weapons to the Confederacy, the Union was in serious trouble. Then came September 17th, 1862, a place called Antietam Creek in Maryland. The single bloodiest day in all of American history. By sunset, around 22,700 soldiers were dead, wounded, or missing. In one day. The Confederates pulled back, close enough to a win. Lincoln finally had his moment.
Gentlemen, I'm freeing the slaves in rebel states.
All of them?
And here's the clever bit. No European country wants to be seen helping a nation that's fighting to keep slavery. One piece of paper, and we cut off their allies.
That's actually brilliant.
I know. Someone get me a pen.
A nervous telegram operator in a tiny Washington office is clicking away on his machine when his device suddenly goes crazy. He reads the message, knocks over his coffee, and sprints down the hallway yelling, "The president did it! He's freeing the slaves!" Papers fly everywhere. A clerk drops his sandwich, someone trips over a chair. On January 1st, 1863, the proclamation went into effect, and something remarkable followed. Around 200,000 black men signed up to fight for the Union. Former slaves picked up rifles and marched against the very system that had enslaved them. The war to save the country had become a war to end slavery. And the summer of 1863 was about to bring two battles that would decide everything. Summer 1863. The Confederacy was losing men, losing supplies, and losing ground. So, Confederate General Robert E. Lee decided to gamble everything on one massive invasion of the North. His plan was bold and desperate. March into Pennsylvania, win a huge battle on northern soil, and scare everyday Northerners into demanding peace. Here's the funny thing. Nobody actually planned to fight at Gettysburg. Some Confederate soldiers wandered into the little town because they had heard a store there sold shoes. Their feet were wrecked from months of marching. They just wanted boots. Instead, they bumped into Union scouts. Both sides called for backup, and then more backup. All because some guys needed some new footwear. By day 3, 165,000 soldiers were crammed around a town most of them had never heard of. And Lee ordered one of the most famous and most doomed attacks in military history. General Lee wants me to do what?
March your men across that open field toward those Union soldiers on the hill.
The ones with all the cannons.
That's the one.
Across an open field for almost a mile.
Those are the orders.
Has General Lee seen that field?
He believes in the courage of our men.
I believe in courage too. I also believe in math. Nearly half of Pickett's men were left on that field. 1,000 miles west, Union General Ulysses S. Grant had the city of Vicksburg surrounded. Vicksburg sat right on the Mississippi River, the most important waterway in America. Whoever held it controlled the entire middle of the country. Inside the walls, a skinny Confederate soldier is down to his last cracker.
He breaks it in half and offers one piece to a stray cat. The cat sniffs it, looks deeply offended, and struts away. On July 3rd, Lee's invasion collapses at Gettysburg. The very next day, July 4th, Vicksburg surrounded. The Union now controlled the Mississippi, slicing the Confederacy clean in two. 2 battles, 1 week. The South could still fight. The war could drag on for years. But one man was about to decide how it would end. Lincoln needed someone who would finish this war. He chose Ulysses S. Grant, the general who had just won Vicksburg, and gave him one simple order: end it. Grant's strategy sounded almost crazy. Attack every single day, never stop, never rest, never give Lee's army a chance to breathe. Even when the Union lost a battle, Grant didn't retreat like previous generals had. He just marched forward and attacked again. The cost was staggering. In just 6 weeks during spring 1864, over 55,000 Union soldiers were killed or wounded. Newspapers started calling Grant a butcher. Families across the North dreaded every knock at the door. In a small Ohio town, a mail carrier drops off a bag of letters at the post office. Every single envelope is edged in black, the color families used when someone had died. The postmaster counts them: 14 black-edged letters in one delivery, for one tiny town. He looks at the empty main street and realizes most of the young men who used to walk past his window every morning are gone for good. Then, in September, the mood flipped. Union General William Sherman captured Atlanta, one of the biggest and most important cities in the South. Lincoln won re-election in a landslide. Sherman then marched his army 300 miles to the coast, burning farms, railways, and anything the Confederate Army could use along the way. His goal was simple: destroy the South's ability to keep fighting. General Lee, Sherman just burned half of Georgia.
How are our supply lines?
What supply lines?
Food for the men?
We had some cornmeal. A horse ate it.
The horse ate our food?
To be fair, sir, we almost ate the horse. By April 1865, Lee's army was starving and surrounded. On April 9th, he surrendered to Grant at a farmhouse in Virginia. 4 years of fighting, and the United States was one country again. 5 days later, Abraham Lincoln went to see a play. A man named John Wilkes Booth crept up behind him and pulled the trigger. Lincoln died the next morning. The man who held America together didn't live to see what it would become. This war ends in 1865, but the real aftermath plays out in the Wild West. If you skip that, you're missing half the story. Click here to watch it, and I'll catch you next time.